Okay, I'm going to introduce Chapter 8 here, and this idea of writing thematic inquiry-based units. So Chapter 8 is really crucial in the book. It's kind of the crux of taking the foundation of constructivism as a theory and a philosophy and applying it to some actions. So we begin with assessment and writing curriculum around essential questions. And we do the unit planning, as we said before, because it's a good size to work with. Lesson planning is too specific, and when we do just lesson planning, we fall into the activity trap. When a teacher has students doing a sequence of lessons, but not clearly identifying how those lessons form a coherent sequence. The activity trap can result in students not knowing how lessons fit together, why they're doing what they're doing, and this ensures then that many of our students stay stuck at step 3 on the engagement ladder. We're shooting, of course, for step 4 or 5 on the engagement ladder. So therefore, we begin our planning by thinking about where we want students to get to by the end of the unit and what questions we will use to frame the unit of study. This will ensure that you are only doing what applies to the completion of the unit and end goal. And by aligning to questions, provide your students the best chance of understanding why they're doing what they're doing. And as we've said before, we begin with unit plans because it's the right size. It's not as specific as lesson planning. It allows us to develop themes, and within themes, then we have students that we give opportunities for students to connect big ideas, which is higher order thinking that we want to get to. So let's talk about backwards design here. We start by identifying our desired results. What do we want students to know, understand, be able to do? What are the enduring understandings? So what are they going to take with them? What really is going to last? What do we really want to focus on? And then we can prioritize based on that with the limited time you always have in a class. Once we know where we're going, we got to determine what is the evidence we're going to look for. How will I know students have achieved the desired results? What am I going to look for evidence? What's going to tell me that they are proficient with the topic? And what is the collection of evidence I'm going to have at the end that they're going to have? Think of it as a portfolio of work instead of a list of what the teacher does to cover everything. And then from there, we can start planning the learning experiences based around what knowledge do they need, what facts do they need, and what are they going to have to do to be successful. And then we can start identifying specific activities to build that knowledge and those skills, and then, of course, think about what resources do we need. So let's look at this idea of curriculum planning in another way, as a hamburger. And we're going to keep in mind how this fits in with backwards design. So think about what we just went through as a sequence and how what I talk about here fits that sequence of activities. So we start with our essential questions and what students will know, do, and understand. The essential questions are used to communicate and frame the content of the unit, and the KDUs are the content of the unit. So by the end, what will students have to know about the theme, do with the theme, so skills, not activities, and have to understand about the theme to proficiently apply the terms and concepts, so the know part, and do something with the information, the do part. The bottom one is the outline of the summative assessment or assessments. So this provides the base and the foundation for the purpose of the unit. It should be authentic and meaningful. So think of it this way. Without the buns, you have just a pile of burger parts, but not a neat, coherent package you can pick up and dig into pick up in your hands and dig into as a meal. So we want our curriculum to be this package you can pick up and dig into. The meat, then, is the collection of possible formative assessments and learning activities that you will lead students through to become proficient with the KDUs. So the meat is all that lesson planning. And then the condiments and the toppings are the application of the concepts of engaging students by applying what we learned in Units 1 and 2 to the art of teaching. So how will you engage students in the activities? How will you create the safe culture that they'll want to participate in? All right, so now let's talk about the design process. And this is the design process that is in Chapter 8 and the process we're going to have you use to create your own unit plan, so that the steps in doing so. So this takes the idea of the pieces that are the hamburger and puts them in the sequence of a backwards design. And this is covered in more detail in the book, so this is just going to be an overview. So we start by identifying potential theme for a unit. Maybe you review Chapter 6 for the difference between thematic and thingatic, again, if you need to. And once we've got our central concept, then we can frame it in the form of a thematic question, and we can start thinking about the end goal. What possible summative assessments might we use, knowing that either of these things might change as this idea evolves. So then we determine the scope of the unit. The scope is the breadth of the unit. The sequence is the order in which we do things. So what we're doing here is building a scope and sequence. So to do this, we identify all the KDUs, all the know, do, and understand. That tells us our content for the unit. The guiding questions then come out of that. Once we have all of our content listed, we can start thinking about, well, what guiding questions would I ask to get at that? So the guiding questions organize and frame the pieces of the scope of the unit. And this is an iterative process, iterative. So your guiding questions might cause you to go back and modify your KDUs, and your KDUs might cause you to then modify your guiding questions as you continue to work with it. One step that's kind of off to the side, because you don't always need to do it, but it is a helpful step for especially beginning teachers, is unpacking the standards. And this is a process where you take the standards you think apply to this unit, or you want to apply to this unit possibly, and you unpack them. You pull them apart and you look at the key nouns and verbs in there to see if they can tell you those KDUs. And that can help you flesh out your KDUs, or it might help you narrow down your KDUs and keep it from getting too big and out of hand. And then, once we've got that, we've got the frame of the unit, this outline, then we can start filling in the pieces of what formative assessments and learning activities, which are the one and the same. A formative assessment is a learning activity. A learning activity gives you information about how students are doing, so they're the same thing. And from those topic ideas, the next step in our next unit will be to design the meat of the hamburger, so figure out those lesson plans.